Hey America, before you inhale one more cookie, hang one more unstable ornament, or drop another $1,000 on gifts nobody asked for, stop. Smash that like button right now, because in the next 60 minutes, I'm exposing the 111 dumbest, most illegal, most banned, most brain-melting Christmas facts in U.S. history that schools, your parents, and yes, even the government tried to hide from you. We're talking the time Christmas was literally illegal across the United States for 26 straight years. The giant corporation that redesigned Santa just to sell sugary soda, and the first American Christmas that ended with actual cannibalism. If even one of these 111 facts doesn't make your jaw drop, I'll delete this channel tonight. But if they do, you have to share this video with every group chat you're in before Christmas hits. Drop your state in the comments, hit that like button, and let's destroy Christmas the right way. 1. Christmas was illegal in America from 1659 to 1681, and the entire colony felt like someone accidentally deleted December from the calendar. People acted confused because they had no idea what to do with all the cold weather and free time. One farmer named Elias tried humming a tune but immediately pretended he had a cough. Neighbors avoided eye contact because joy looked suspicious. Even church members glanced around nervously like they might get arrested for smiling. Imagine Americans today losing Christmas. Someone would riot in front of Target. Back then, people just swallowed sadness and hoped nobody noticed festive energy leaking out accidentally. 2. Celebrating Christmas could get you a 5-shilling fine in Boston, and it turned every morning into a paranoid countdown. Shopkeepers listened for risky cheer like they were guarding a museum. One old man tried lighting a candle for decoration and blew it out so fast he almost passed out. Kids learned that silent boredom was safer than fun. Housewives hid food because Christmas spices smelled too happy. Officers patrolled streets with frozen eyebrows, waiting to catch someone acting jolly. Imagine Americans now facing this nonsense. Someone would demand Christmas rights on live TV. Back then, everyone just survived December without joy or flavor. 3. Puritans called Christmas trees a pagan mockery and treated every pine like it was plotting evil. One strict preacher claimed the branches whispered sinful temptations. A young villager named Thomas brought home a tiny tree because it looked pretty. His neighbors reacted like he carried a cursed object. People circled the tree and argued if it should be burned or ignored. Families avoided forests because they feared accidentally touching a festive branch. Imagine modern Americans hearing this. Someone would decorate 10 trees out of spite. Back then, the Puritans acted like nature tried to convert everyone into dancing woodland sinners. 4. The first American Christmas tree was set up in 1840 and confused half the town because nobody knew why a decorated log stood in someone's living room. A man named Charles invited neighbors to admire it. They stared at the glowing candles like they were watching a science experiment explode. One woman gasped and claimed the tree looked possessed. Kids peeked behind it to see if tiny spirits lived inside. Rumors spread fast. People said Christmas trees encouraged mischief. Imagine Americans today seeing the first tree. Someone would post it online instantly. In 1840, people just panicked at glowing branches. 5. Coca-Cola invented the modern red suit Santa in 1931 and accidentally transformed a jolly legend into a soda-powered celebrity. People saw the ads and decided this new Santa looked friendly enough to enter homes without causing alarm. One kid asked why Santa suddenly drank cola. His dad shrugged because nobody understood marketing magic. Store owners loved it. They posted huge posters and forced shoppers to trust the new red outfit. Imagine Americans today watching a brand redesign Santa. People would argue online for years. In 1931, everyone simply accepted a fizzy drink company rewriting Christmas style forever. 6. Before Coca-Cola stepped in, Santa wore green or purple or whatever color an artist felt brave enough to use. Kids never knew which version would appear. One year, Santa looked like a cheerful forest wizard. Another year, he looked like a confused royal guard. Parents improvised stories each time. An old man named Harold complained because he never knew which Santa he should fear or trust. Merchants struggled to match decorations with unpredictable outfits. Imagine Americans today dealing with random Santa colors. Someone would demand standardization. Back then, people accepted chaos and hoped the next Santa looked less suspicious. 7. Jingle Bells was originally a Thanksgiving song, and the composer probably never expected people to blast it through malls in December forever. A group of early singers tried performing it during Thanksgiving dinner. Guests clapped politely because they did not understand sleigh references during a holiday with turkey. Years later, someone reused the song for Christmas, and it stuck instantly. One woman insisted it sounded more cheerful in snow. Kids liked shouting the chorus. America made the switch and never looked back. Imagine telling modern families it belonged to Thanksgiving. They would refuse. That tune became glued to December permanently. 8. The word Christmas was once banned in government documents and made clerks panic every time they needed to reference the holiday. A confused worker named Henry tried writing winter celebration instead. His supervisor crossed it out and wrote approved seasonal observance. People argued for hours about acceptable wording. It felt like paperwork performed gymnastics. Citizens wondered if the government forgot the month existed. Imagine Americans today learning the word was banned. Someone would protest with giant signs. Back then, people sighed and kept rewriting forms. They survived the season using bland phrases that sucked the joy out of every official message created. 9. Mistletoe is a parasitic plant that kills trees, and early Americans acted shocked when they learned their kissing decoration behaved like a leafy vampire. A farmer named Rebecca discovered mistletoe draining her apple tree. She shouted at it like it could hear. People pulled it off branches and tossed it away. Yet everyone still used it indoors because tradition beat logic. Teenagers loved it anyway. Parents rolled their eyes each time they saw a mistletoe ambush. Imagine Americans today learning their cute plant kills trees. Someone would start a dramatic petition. Back then, people shrugged and kissed under botanical danger. 10. Kissing under mistletoe started because people believed it cured infertility, and couples treated it like a magical sealing doctor. A nervous husband named Robert dragged his wife under a branch and hoped it worked faster than actual medicine. Neighbors watched with awkward curiosity. Priests warned people not to trust plant remedies, but nobody listened. Young lovers used mistletoe as an excuse to practice flirting. Elders said the tradition felt silly yet harmless. Imagine Americans today hearing the original purpose. Couples would still line up because romance ignores logic. The mistletoe legend survived by mixing hope, curiosity, and accidental comedy. 11. The original mince pies contained real shredded meat, and early Americans reacted with confused excitement because nobody knew if they were dessert or dinner. A cook named Martha served them proudly. Guests stared at the pies like they were suspicious experiments. One man asked if he needed a knife or a prayer. Kids poked the filling and hoped it would not wiggle. Travelers bought mince pies expecting sweetness and discovered beef lurking inside. Imagine modern Americans taking a bite. Someone would demand a refund instantly. Back then, people ate silently and pretended meat dessert tasted normal because politeness defeated their taste buds. 12. In 1647, England canceled Christmas by law, and the entire population reacted like their joy had been stolen by a moody wizard. Soldiers patrolled markets and grabbed food that looked too festive. One baker named Thomas tried hiding a tiny cake behind flour bags. Officers found it and scolded him like he committed treason with sugar. Families whispered stories about secret celebrations. Everyone feared loud laughter. Imagine Americans today facing a Christmas cancellation. Someone would sue the sky. Back then, citizens accepted the misery and hoped the ban vanished quickly because December without cheer felt like a long punishment shaped by gloom. 13. Fruitcake was once used as a weapon because the brick-like texture terrified everyone who tried chewing it. A sailor named Jonathan carried one fruitcake on long voyages. He claimed it could stun fish. His friends used it as a doorstop. A neighbor threw one at a rat and won instantly. People joked that fruitcakes lasted longer than some marriages. Imagine modern Americans discovering this origin. Someone would turn fruitcake battles into a televised sport. The dessert survived through confusion, fear, and comedy. Its history proves that Christmas traditions sometimes evolve because nobody knows how to politely remove dangerous desserts from existence. 14. The first artificial Christmas tree was made from toilet brushes in 1930, and shoppers stared at the prototypes like they were prank decorations. A salesman named Walter proudly displayed the brush tree. Customers whispered because it looked like a fuzzy green porcupine wearing holiday spirit. One child asked if it cleaned floors, another asked if it smelled strange. People eventually bought them because real trees dried too fast. Imagine Americans today learning their grandparents decorated giant scrubbers. They would laugh nonstop. This invention became popular through practicality and chaos. The toilet brush tree proved creativity sometimes appears when people panic about pine needles everywhere. 15. Silent Night was written because the church organ was destroyed by hungry mice and the musician had to improvise with pure panic. A priest named Joseph begged for a replacement song. The composer grabbed a guitar and prayed his new melody worked. Mice ran across the floor like guilty criminals. The choir practiced quietly because nobody trusted the remaining equipment. Villagers gathered expecting music and heard a soft tune that felt gentle and accidental. Imagine Americans today losing church instruments to mice. Someone would film it immediately. Silent Night survived because disaster forced calm creativity on a night filled with nervous hopes. 16. Christmas lights were so expensive in 1900 that only the president could afford them, and regular families stared at the White House like it glowed with magic money. A young visitor named Clara gasped when she saw electric bulbs. Her parents whispered that the cost could feed their town. Storekeepers posted signs reminding customers not to touch lights because they were precious. Everyone dreamed of one glowing strand. Imagine Americans now facing those prices. Someone would take out a loan for decorations. Back then, people used candles and hoped nothing burned. The president's exclusive lights made him look like holiday royalty. 17. In 1914, German and British soldiers played soccer on Christmas Day and confused their commanders because war paused for a casual game. A German soldier named Karl kicked the ball proudly. A British soldier named Tom cheered even though they were enemies. Everyone laughed awkwardly because kindness felt dangerous. Officers watched helplessly. The moment looked like a school recess happening in muddy trenches. After the match, soldiers traded snacks like neighbors. Imagine modern Americans hearing this story. People would call it the weirdest timeout ever. The truce vanished by morning, and the war returned. Yet that soccer match survived as strange history. 18. The United States government declared Christmas a federal holiday, partly to stop people from rioting because crowds demanded official cheer. Congress argued for hours. One representative named William complained that angry citizens wanted holiday unity immediately. Another said the nation needed structured relaxation. Towns pushed for the decision. Farmers wrote letters begging for a break. Shopkeepers wanted predictable schedules. Imagine Americans today rioting for Christmas. Someone would live stream the chaos. The government finally approved the holiday. Peace returned. Citizens spread cheer like a victory chant. That decision proved America sometimes solves stress by declaring a day for joy instead of conflict. 19. Tinsel was originally made of real silver, and early Americans loved the shine until their pets started licking strands and causing absolute panic. A woman named Abigail decorated her entire house. Her cat chewed one piece and sprinted across rooms like a possessed gremlin. Children screamed. Neighbors fetched help because the cat glowed in reflections. Families realized silver tinsel cost too much and caused chaos. Imagine modern Americans using silver tinsel. Someone would blame their dog for ruining the carpet. Back then, people learned quickly and switched materials. The shiny tradition survived because humans enjoy sparkles even when danger lurks silently. 20. Candy canes were invented to keep kids quiet in church, and every parent treated them like magical silence wands. A pastor begged a candy maker named Adam to help control noisy children. Adam shaped sugar into long sticks and handed them out. Children sucked quietly. Parents sighed with relief. The church service sounded peaceful for the first time. One child tried tapping his cane on the bench but stopped when everyone glared. Imagine Americans today learning candy canes were behavior tools. Parents would celebrate. The tradition continued because sweetness always wins. Candy canes became symbols of calm, even though silence never lasted long. 21. The original candy canes were straight and early Americans stared at them like someone forgot to finish the design. A shopkeeper named Helen sold them proudly. Customers asked why the sticks looked like plain sugar rods. Kids waved them like tiny swords. One boy tried balancing his on his nose and claimed it was a talent stick. Years later, someone bent one into a hook, and the entire nation acted like they witnessed a miracle. Imagine Americans today discovering the original shape. People would complain online instantly. The straight canes vanished because everyone preferred hooks that felt easier to hang everywhere. 22. Rudolph was created in 1939 by a department store hoping to sell coloring books, and customers never expected a red-nosed reindeer to become a national icon. A writer named Robert invented Rudolph during a stressful work shift. His boss wanted a character that screamed holiday charm. Children loved the glowing nose instantly. Parents bought the books like collectibles. Store managers celebrated because sales exploded. Imagine Americans today learning Rudolph started as marketing. Someone would shrug because everything feels like marketing now. Rudolph survived because people enjoy underdog heroes, especially ones who guide magical sleighs through storms like festive furry headlights. 23. In Ukraine, Christmas trees are decorated with fake spider webs and visitors from America react like they walked into a Halloween protest. A grandmother named Olena proudly placed glittery webs on branches. Her grandchildren cheered because they believed webs brought good luck. A confused American tourist asked if spiders delivered gifts. Locals laughed kindly. The tradition came from old legends about magical spiders helping poor families. Imagine Americans bringing this idea home. Some would love it, others would panic. The web-covered trees survived because weird charm beats fear. The tradition became a beautiful reminder that luck sometimes hides in unexpected shapes. 24. The world's most expensive Christmas tree cost $11 million, and guests at the Abu Dhabi hotel stared at it like it was a glowing money mountain. A guard stood beside it watching for curious hands. Tourists took selfies while pretending not to gasp. A kid asked if the tree paid taxes. The ornaments included gems that looked ready to start arguments. Imagine Americans seeing this tree in person. Someone would loudly question the credit card bill. The hotel bragged about the extravagance. People discussed the tree for months. It became a legendary example of how luxury can turn pine needles into drama. 25. A Christmas Carol saved Christmas in 1843 because Charles Dickens accidentally convinced the entire nation that December should feel magical again. People read the book and immediately questioned their behavior. One grumpy shopkeeper named Gerald slammed the pages shut and announced he would try kindness for one day. Families discussed Scrooge like he was a real neighbor. Children pretended to be Tiny Tim and wished everyone happiness. Imagine Americans today giving a book that kind of power. Someone would turn it into a meme instantly. Dickens revived traditions through storytelling and guilt. His tale shaped the modern holiday with dramatic charm. 26. Before Dickens wrote his famous story, barely anyone in England cared about Christmas, and the holiday felt like a dusty decoration nobody wanted. Families worked through December. Shops stayed open. A man named Alfred forgot what celebration even meant. Dinner tasted ordinary. Then Dickens published his book and the mood changed fast. People rushed to decorate. Carol singers appeared on streets. Alfred bought a candle and claimed he felt festive for the first time in years. Imagine Americans abandoning Christmas. Impossible. The revival proved that one story can resurrect traditions and drag an entire nation into cheerful chaos without warning. 27. The average American gains 8 to 10 pounds every December, and many families treat the holiday season like competitive snacking month. A man named Frank promised to eat responsibly, then discovered fudge at his office party. His plan collapsed fast. Aunt Linda delivered 3 casseroles. Neighbors shared cookies. Frank surrendered. Gyms waited patiently for January victims. Imagine early Americans facing modern buffets. They would panic at the choices. Holiday food culture turned December into a delicious trap. People laugh about it every year. The weight gain proves Americans celebrate with enthusiasm and sugar, and absolutely no regard for future regrets. 28. In Japan, KFC convinced everyone that Christmas meant fried chicken. and the marketing team responsible probably celebrated harder than anyone else. A father named Hiroshi lined up for hours to get his holiday bucket. His kids cheered when they saw the crispy meal. Restaurants decorated with festive buckets and glowing Colonel statues. American visitors stared in shock because fried chicken replaced traditional feasts. Imagine Americans adopting this idea. Some would join instantly. Others would argue about gravy. The tradition exploded into a national habit. Japan turned a fast food meal into a holiday symbol that still confuses the entire world. 29. Japan's KFC Christmas orders spike 7,000%, and employees prepare like they are entering a culinary battlefield. A worker named Emmy wrapped buckets faster than she could blink. Customers stretched around corners like they waited for concert tickets. Families reserved meals weeks ahead. One man cried when he missed his slot. Imagine Americans facing that pressure at a drive-thru. Chaos. The demand proved how powerful traditions can grow from smart marketing. KFC became the center of Christmas excitement. People joked that fried chicken became the national holiday bird. The frenzy continues every year with cheerful, grease-filled enthusiasm. 30 Baby. It's Cold Outside was written by a man trying to keep his date from leaving a party, and the original moment looked nothing like the debates it causes today. A songwriter named Frank practiced the duet with his wife to impress guests. Everyone clapped because the tune felt playful. Friends begged them to perform it again. Imagine modern Americans watching that scene through a time machine. Some would laugh, some would argue. The song traveled through decades collecting fame and controversy. Yet its origin was simply one couple enjoying attention. Christmas gained another classic born from charm humor and tiny chaos. 31. The song was banned by radio stations in 2018 for being creepy, and Americans reacted like someone tried erasing a family heirloom. DJs argued on air. A listener named Carol called every station demanding answers. Some stations played the song anyway and dared people to complain. Others acted terrified of backlash. Families debated lyrics at dinner like it was a political topic. Imagine the original songwriter watching this chaos. He would be confused and exhausted. The ban lasted briefly. Fans shouted louder. The song returned because Americans love drama almost as much as they love repeating their favorite Christmas playlist forever. 32. The Yule log on TV started because one station accidentally aired 9 hours of fire, and the public treated it like a hypnotic miracle. A technician named George pressed the wrong button and panicked. Viewers watched the burning log quietly. People claimed it felt comforting. Others used it as background noise for dinner. The station expected complaints but received thank you letters instead. Imagine Americans discovering new entertainment from a fireplace mistake. They embraced the cozy chaos instantly. The loop became tradition. George became a legend. The Yule log proved television sometimes wins by doing absolutely nothing on purpose or by accident. 33. Christmas cards were invented because a man was too lazy to write long letters and he needed a shortcut before his friends judged him. Sir Henry Hallmark looked at a pile of correspondence and sighed dramatically. He hired someone to design one card he could send to everyone. His friends received the identical card and acted impressed, even though they knew the trick. Soon, everyone copied the idea. Imagine Americans today discovering the inventor was just avoiding chores. They would respect him. That lazy act created a massive industry. People embraced the convenience and turned it into a yearly obligation filled with sparkles. 34. The first Christmas card cost 1 shilling, which equals about $50 today, and customers complained, even though they still bought it. A shop clerk named Lydia tried explaining the price to confused buyers. Some nodded politely, others gasped. One man bought a card and immediately regretted the decision. Families debated if one card was worth that much. Imagine Americans paying $50 for one card. They would riot in the aisle. Back then, people paid because novelty controlled their wallets. That expensive card became history because society sometimes chooses excitement over common sense during the holiday season without shame. 35. In 1923, Calvin Coolidge lit the first national Christmas tree and almost burned it down because the wiring behaved like a rebellious spark monster. Spectators gathered and gasped when the lights flickered violently. A guard shouted warnings. Coolidge smiled nervously and hoped nothing exploded. One child clapped because he thought danger looked festive. Technicians scrambled around the tree fixing connections while pretending everything was fine. Imagine Americans witnessing the first tree nearly ignite. They would film it instantly. The ceremony survived the chaos. The tradition grew. Coolidge's near disaster proved national celebrations sometimes begin with panic hiding behind cheerful decorations. 36. Christmas was once moved to January 7th in some countries, and visitors were always confused about why people celebrated late. A traveler named Marcus entered a village expecting calm winter streets. Instead, he found a full holiday party. Locals cheered and handed him food. He asked why the date changed. They explained calendars and traditions with pride. Marcus nodded slowly because none of it made sense to him. Imagine Americans discovering Christmas moved a week. The internet would collapse. Back then, people accepted shifting dates because customs varied. The celebration still felt joyful, even when time itself seemed slightly rearranged for fun. 37. In Iceland, there are 13 evil Santa figures called Yule Lads, and each one behaves like a mischievous cartoon character unleashed on winter nights. Children memorize their names carefully. One lad steals spoons, another slams doors. A boy named Aaron claimed he heard footsteps and panicked. Parents reassured him but secretly listened too. Tourists asked if the Yule Lads were friendly. Locals laughed. The story sounded wild even to them. Imagine Americans meeting 13 chaotic Santas. Some would want selfies, others would run. Iceland embraced the weirdness proudly. The Yule Lads turned December into a festival of strange pranks and chilly excitement. 38. One of the Yule Lads eats children who do not wear new clothes, and parents use this threat like a seasonal safety warning. A mother named Freya told her son to put on his fresh sweater. He refused. She reminded him of the hungry lad. He changed instantly. Visitors asked if the story scared kids too much. Locals shrugged because it worked. Imagine Americans using this tactic. Someone would file a complaint. The legend continues because it mixes humor with fear. Parents laugh. Children behave. The Yule Lad remains a bizarre reminder that fashion apparently determines survival during Icelandic Christmas traditions. 39. The poinsettia plant is named after a man who never actually saw Mexico, even though the plant came from there, and this fact confused entire generations. Joel Poinsett loved botany and brought the plant to America through assistants and travelers. People assumed he studied them directly. He smiled and accepted credit anyway. Gardeners praised his name. One woman asked why the plant honored someone who barely understood it. Nobody had answers. Imagine Americans learning this detail today. They would roll their eyes. The poinsettia tradition grew despite its inaccurate origin. It became a holiday icon carried by mistaken fame and red leaves. 40. Eggnog was originally a poor people's drink, made with cheap rum, and the mixture shocked visitors expecting elegance. A man named Arthur proudly served eggnog at a winter gathering. His wealthy guests sniffed it suspiciously. One sipped cautiously and coughed loudly. Arthur insisted it tasted better after a few gulps. People eventually relaxed and drank more. The party became lively. Imagine Americans discovering eggnog began as budget fuel. They would love it even more. The drink survived centuries because it warms cold nights and lowers judgment. Eggnog transformed from humble mixture to festive tradition, carried by laughter and questionable ingredients everywhere. 41. George Washington got his troops drunk on eggnog to celebrate Christmas, and the entire camp behaved like a chaotic winter carnival. Soldiers cheered loudly. Drums sounded crooked. One man named Henry tried saluting twice because he saw double. Officers pretended everything remained dignified. A cook spilled half a barrel and cried like he lost treasure. The celebration surprised Washington because the eggnog hit harder than expected. Imagine Americans watching this scene today. Someone would turn it into a holiday reenactment. The troops remembered that night forever. Eggnog became legendary fuel during a war that needed rare moments of laughter and warmth. 42. In Catalonia, they have a poop log that delivers presents, and the tradition shocks visitors who assume someone is joking. A family sets up the wooden log. They draw a face on it. Children feed it snacks during December. On Christmas, they beat the log with sticks while singing cheerful poop songs. A boy named Miguel shouted happily as the gifts appeared. Tourists stared in disbelief. Locals proudly explained the custom. Imagine Americans trying this ritual. Some would film it instantly. Others would question everything. The poop log survives because it mixes humor, kindness, and absurd charm into a joyful holiday moment. 43. The tallest Christmas tree ever measured 221 feet, and people gathered around it like ants visiting a glowing skyscraper. Workers climbed ladders nervously. One man named Carl refused to go higher than halfway. The tree leaned slightly, which made spectators gasp. Families snapped photos even though cameras struggled to capture the full height. Imagine Americans seeing this giant today. Someone would attempt a drone shot immediately. The tree became a landmark that winter. People talked about it for years. Its size proved humans enjoy pushing limits, even when decorating something already enormous and difficult to control in the wind. 44. In 1979, a massive Christmas tree in Portugal fell and killed 11 people, and the tragedy shocked the entire community because nobody expected danger from a festive decoration. A man named Paulo heard the crack and shouted warnings. People scattered, but the tree collapsed too quickly. Authorities investigated wiring, anchoring, and weather. Families mourned and questioned safety rules. Imagine Americans witnessing a similar accident. The news would dominate every channel. The event became a reminder that large displays require caution. The village rebuilt slowly. The story remains a solemn part of holiday history, shaped by unexpected disaster hiding behind cheerful tradition. 45. It is still illegal to sell Christmas trees on Sundays in some Massachusetts towns, and residents laugh about the rule because nobody remembers who created it. A vendor named Larry set up his stand on a Saturday and greeted customers proudly. On Sunday, he covered everything with tarps like he was hiding a secret forest. Curious travelers asked why. Larry explained the ancient law with embarrassment. Kids pointed at the trees anyway. Imagine Americans stumbling across this rule today. Someone would file a petition. The law continues to survive like a forgotten relic, drifting through December while baffling anyone new to the region. 46. In some American towns, it is illegal to put fake snow in windows, and decorators treat the rule like an annoying winter mystery. A shop owner named Denise wanted her bakery to sparkle. She sprayed a tiny amount. A local officer tapped the window and reminded her of the ordinance. Denise sighed and wiped everything off with a towel. Customers asked why her display looked plain. She explained the rule and everyone groaned. Imagine Americans hearing that fake snow is banned. Outrage? The law continues, although nobody knows the reason. It remains one of those chilly holiday quirks that refuses to melt away. 47. Alabama is the only state where it is fully legal to keep Christmas lights up all year, and some residents treat it like a personal lifestyle choice. A man named Bobby refused to remove his lights. They stayed up through spring storms and summer heat. Tourists pointed at his glowing porch in July. Bobby waved proudly. Neighbors teased him, but secretly enjoyed the evening sparkle. Imagine Americans nationwide adopting this habit. Streets would glow nonstop. Alabama embraces the tradition because nobody wants to fight harmless joy. The lights continue shining long after December ends, creating year-round cheer with stubborn, festive energy. 48. The first batch of Christmas crackers exploded unexpectedly and terrified everyone who tried opening them because the noise sounded like mini cannons. A party host named Eleanor handed them out enthusiastically. Her guests pulled the crackers and jumped like startled cats. Hats flew across the room. Candy scattered. One man demanded to know why his gift attacked him. Eleanor apologized between laughs. Imagine Americans opening early crackers. They would record slow-motion videos. The chaos helped the tradition grow because people enjoy surprises even when they fear them. Christmas crackers became symbols of noisy fun rather than accidental explosive confusion. 49. Xmas does not disrespect Jesus because the X comes from ancient Greek, and early scholars used it confidently long before internet arguments existed. A student named Daniel discovered this in an old book and felt smarter than everyone at his family dinner. His aunt insisted the X looked rude. Daniel explained patiently. His cousins shrugged. The debate continued anyway. Imagine Americans avoiding pointless arguments. Impossible. The term survived centuries because language changes and people love shortcuts. Xmas remains a simple abbreviation that still sparks confusion. Yet it continues spreading through card signs and cheerful messages every December without causing real harm. 50. The biggest Christmas stocking ever created reached 206 feet, and people entered it like tourists exploring a fabric tunnel. Volunteers spent days sewing enormous pieces together. One woman named Gloria climbed inside to check stability and shouted that it felt warm and strange. Children ran through it laughing. Organizers bragged about the size proudly. Imagine Americans seeing this stocking today. Someone would immediately ask who the gift was for. The stocking became a temporary attraction loved by everyone. Its absurd scale proved holiday spirit often grows larger than logic, especially when communities chase world records with creative holiday enthusiasm. 51. In 1847, London's first Christmas cracker snapped so violently it broke a man's finger, and the inventor pretended this accident meant the product worked perfectly. A gentleman named Rupert opened one at dinner. The loud pop frightened guests. His finger bent awkwardly. The host panicked. The inventor smiled proudly because the noise impressed him more than the injury. People still enjoyed the surprise and demanded more crackers. Imagine Americans today opening a gift that fractures bones. Someone would sue instantly. Back then, everyone laughed nervously and kept celebrating. The cracker became tradition through chaos and stubborn enthusiasm, mixed with mild danger. 52. The world record for Christmas lights on one house reached over 1 million bulbs, and neighbors stared at it like a glowing alien landing strip. The homeowner named Patrick flipped the switch proudly. The entire street lit up like daylight. Birds woke up confused. Drivers slowed down because the brightness felt unreal. People traveled from other towns just to see the spectacle. Imagine Americans living next door. Someone would need sunglasses at midnight. The electric bill probably cried, yet the display became legendary. It proved that holiday spirit sometimes means blinding half the neighborhood with joyful colors that refuse to dim quietly. 53. That massive light display used more electricity than a small town, and officials joked about checking the power grid for signs of stress. Patrick monitored his meters nervously. They spun like carnival wheels. His wife asked if the house might lift off like a rocket. Visitors cheered anyway. Reporters filmed the glowing madness. Imagine Americans paying such a bill. Someone would start a fundraising page. Patrick embraced the fame. His yard became a tourist destination. People sipped cocoa while shielding their eyes. The display showed that Christmas passion sometimes pushes limits and wallets until everything around you vibrates with relentless brightness. 54. In 1659, people could be jailed for making Christmas pudding, and bakers treated the rule like a ridiculous culinary threat. A woman named Edith stirred her mixture quietly. Her husband warned her to stop. She insisted dessert was worth the risk. Neighbors whispered because they smelled spices through the window. One visitor knocked and begged her to hide the bowl. Officers patrolled streets listening for suspicious kitchen activity. Imagine Americans today facing jail over dessert. Outrage. Back then, people disguised pudding as regular food. The ban faded eventually. The pudding survived because nobody wants a holiday without sweet rebellion bubbling in pots. 55. The first gingerbread houses were inspired by Hansel and Gretel, and children reacted like fairy tales stepped into real kitchens. A baker named Wilhelm crafted walls from cookies. Kids watched with wide eyes. One girl asked if witches lived inside. Wilhelm laughed nervously because he disliked the question. Families decorated the houses with candies until they looked magical. Visitors admired the creations and pretended not to steal gumdrops. Imagine Americans building the first gingerbread houses today. The internet would explode with photos. The tradition continued because people enjoy mixing sugar imagination and mild fear into a delicious holiday construction project. 56. In Germany, people once pickled Christmas trees to keep them green, and the process confused outsiders who assumed someone misunderstood holiday spirit. A gardener named Ulrich dipped branches into brine with serious concentration. His wife questioned the smell. Neighbors peeked over fences. The tree looked shiny and strange. Visitors asked if it was safe. Ulrich claimed the preservation worked perfectly. Imagine Americans seeing a pickled tree. Someone would demand instructions. Others would run. The tradition faded because better methods arrived. Still, the story survived as proof that humans sometimes attempt bizarre experiments when desperate to keep their festive decorations alive longer. 57. The average Christmas tree hides hundreds of spiders, and early families learned this horrifying truth when tiny legs started crawling across ornaments. A woman named Claire screamed when she spotted one. Her husband dropped the star topper. Kids climbed onto chairs like the floor turned into lava. Neighbors heard the panic and assumed disaster. Imagine Americans discovering living surprises inside their trees. Someone would burn the house down metaphorically. Yet the spiders kept appearing every year because nature ignores holidays. People still bring trees home. They hope the spiders stay asleep. The tradition survives because beauty outweighs eight-legged nightmares. 58. In 1983, A Christmas Story flopped at the box office and studio executives groaned because they thought the movie vanished forever. A teenager named Mark saw it anyway and told his friends it was hilarious. Cable networks picked it up later. Families started watching it during holidays. The film grew in popularity slowly. Imagine Americans learning the movie almost disappeared. Fans would panic. The leg lamp scenes became legendary. The Red Ryder jokes spread everywhere. A Christmas Story climbed from failure to iconic status. It proved that some holiday classics need time, attention, and a little nostalgia before they shine brightly. 59. The leg lamp in A Christmas Story was inspired by a real 1940s soda advertisement, and people were stunned to learn the bizarre object came from marketing. A designer named Joseph studied old ads. He saw the lamp idea and laughed. He added fringe and high heels for dramatic effect. Filmmakers loved it. Audiences reacted with confusion and delight. Imagine Americans stumbling upon the original ad. Someone would collect it instantly. The lamp became symbolic of quirky holiday humor. Fans bought replicas proudly. That odd creation showed how simple ideas can transform into cultural treasures when comedy meets glowing plastic enthusiasm. 60. The director of Die Hard confirmed it is a Christmas movie, and fans celebrated like they won a decade-long argument. A man named Trevor quoted the announcement at his office party. His co-workers cheered. Others groaned. Families debated the statement across dinner tables. Cable channels added the film to December schedules. Imagine early audiences hearing this claim. They would shake their heads. Today, the decision feels official. The movie now sits beside classic holiday films, even though it features explosions more than snowflakes. Die Hard earned its festive badge through passion humor and endless determination from fans who refused to surrender. 61. In Greece, people burned their Christmas trees after January to scare away demons, and visitors often believed they walked into a medieval fantasy movie. A man named Nikos dragged his tree outside proudly. His neighbors gathered with snacks like they were attending a campfire show. Flames rose. Someone claimed they heard a demon scream. Kids laughed nervously. Tourists asked if this was legal. Locals shrugged. Imagine Americans trying this tradition. Someone would call the fire department instantly. Yet the ritual continues because it mixes superstition, heat, and dramatic flair. The burning trees remind everyone that holiday endings can be very intense. 62. The world's largest gingerbread village contained 1 million calories, and bakers treated it like constructing a sugary city ready to collapse under its own delicious weight. A chef named Marlene designed tiny cookie buildings. Volunteers glued walls with frosting. Children wandered through the display and whispered like they walked inside a candy universe. One boy tried licking a roof before his mother grabbed him. Imagine Americans living near this village. Someone would attempt to eat a street. The project became legendary. It proved holiday imagination grows wild when people combine architecture creativity and extreme amounts of sugar into one massive masterpiece. 63. In Norway, people hide their brooms on Christmas Eve because witches are rumored to steal them, and families treat the tradition like a serious midnight mission. A woman named Astrid placed every broom behind a locked cabinet. Her kids helped by searching the house for stray brushes. Neighbors whispered about past witch sightings. Tourists asked why witches needed cleaning tools. Locals laughed but kept hiding everything anyway. Imagine Americans attempting this custom. Someone would misplace the brooms permanently. The tradition continues because it blends fun folklore and mild paranoia. Every Christmas Eve becomes a household treasure hunt inspired by ancient fears. 64. The original St. Nicholas punched a man during a church meeting, and people still consider him a symbol of kindness, which makes the story hilariously confusing. A bishop named Arius argued loudly. Nicholas lost patience. He threw a punch heard across the hall. Other bishops gasped. Someone spilled wine. The meeting devolved into stunned silence. Imagine Americans watching a saint fight in public. The internet would celebrate instantly. The story survived centuries. People still adore Nicholas despite his dramatic moment. His legend proves even beloved holiday figures can have surprising tempers hidden behind their gentle reputations and dusty historical records. 65. Santa's reindeer names come from German drinking terms, and early storytellers giggled quietly whenever they wrote them. A writer named Heinrich chose names that sounded powerful, festive, and slightly tipsy. Donner meant thunder, but also hangover. Blitzen meant lightning, but reminded people of strong drinks. Parents ignored the innuendo. Children repeated the names proudly. Imagine Americans discovering the secret origins today. Some would laugh, others would pretend not to. The names survived because tradition matters more than translation. The reindeer team continues guiding Santa with a mix of energy, humor, and linguistic fun that most people never notice during December. 66. In 1955, Sears printed a phone number that mistakenly connected kids to the Pentagon's war room, and officers nearly panicked when calls for Santa flooded their lines. A colonel named Harry answered the first call. A child asked for a toy truck. Harry blinked in confusion. Staff members scrambled to redirect calls. The military eventually created a special line to satisfy children. Imagine Americans discovering this mix-up today. People would laugh nonstop. The incident led to NORAD tracking Santa each year. The tradition began through an error proving some of the best holiday moments start with pure accidental chaos. 67. The most stolen Christmas item is the baby Jesus statue, and towns treat the disappearance like a holiday mystery. A woman named Betty placed her nativity scene proudly. The next morning, baby Jesus was gone. She interrogated neighbors. Kids looked guilty but denied everything. The police shrugged because they had bigger problems. Local teens bragged quietly. Imagine Americans witnessing this pattern nationwide. Someone would host a recovery hotline. The thefts continue because small statues make easy targets. Communities replace them every year. Baby Jesus has become an unofficial symbol of Christmas mischief due to endless disappearances from lawns across the country. 68. In 2011, thieves stole a $2 million diamond-encrusted baby Jesus, and investigators treated the case like a dramatic movie plot. A guard named Leo discovered the empty display and panicked. Reporters swarmed the scene. The church issued statements begging for its return. People debated whether such an expensive decoration made sense. Imagine Americans hearing this story today. Someone would ask why the statue needed diamonds at all. The thieves vanished quietly. The case remained unsolved. The incident proved that mixing luxury with nativity scenes creates chaos, confusion, and headlines that overshadow the actual meaning of the holiday season. 69. White Christmas by Bing Crosby became the best-selling single of all time, and people still act shocked that one gentle song outperformed entire generations of musicians. A radio host named Marvin played it every December morning. Listeners hummed along without complaint. Grandparents told stories about hearing it during wartime. Younger families discovered it through movies. Imagine Americans learning the song outsold modern pop stars. Someone would argue endlessly. Yet the song stays undefeated. Its simple melody survived decades because nostalgia beats trends. White Christmas became the soundtrack of winter, proving emotional warmth sells better than anything else ever recorded. 70. Irving Berlin, who wrote White Christmas, was Jewish. and people often react with surprise even though talented writers create stories beyond their own traditions. Berlin composed the song during a quiet moment. He imagined peaceful scenes for families everywhere. A pianist named Harold played the early version and claimed it felt magical. Producers loved it instantly. Imagine Americans witnessing this creation today. Someone would call it beautiful irony. The song transcended backgrounds. It united people through melody. Berlin's work showed that artistry belongs to everyone willing to share feelings. His creation became a cornerstone of holiday music across the nation. 71. In Canada, Santa has his own postal code, H0H0H0, and kids send letters like they are communicating with a magical government department. A mail clerk named Louise sorted thousands of envelopes every December. Some letters contained cookies. Others contained drawings of questionable reindeer anatomy. Volunteers responded kindly to each child. One boy asked Santa for a pet moose. Another requested more snow days. Imagine Americans seeing this system. Someone would demand a Santa zip code too. The Canadian Post embraced the tradition proudly. The address became iconic. It proved holiday spirit grows stronger when mailboxes fill with wild, adorable requests. 72. The average American spends over $1,000 on Christmas, and many families act like they are entering a financial endurance test. A shopper named Melissa marched into a mall with confidence. She left with 17 bags and mild regret. Her husband checked the receipts and pretended not to panic. Kids circled catalogs and pointed at everything. Friends exchanged gifts that cost too much but felt necessary. Imagine early Americans seeing these numbers. They would faint. The spending frenzy continues every year. It reflects excitement, tradition, and peer pressure wrapped into one cheerful but expensive December ritual across the entire country. 73. 30 million real Christmas trees are sold in the United States every year, and tree farms become crowded like holiday amusement parks. A family named the Robinsons tested every tree by shaking it dramatically. The father sniffed branches for no reason. The kids argued which tree had better personality. Workers watched with patience. Cars left with trees strapped awkwardly to roofs. Imagine Americans trying to reduce these numbers. Impossible. People love real trees. They ignore the needles on the carpet. The tradition thrives because families enjoy the yearly hunt. It feels like choosing a leafy guest for the entire season. 74. Every December, around 15,000 Americans end up in the emergency room. Due to decorating injuries, and hospitals treat these cases like seasonal traditions. A man named Dwight fell off his ladder while trying to hang lights shaped like dolphins. Nurses asked why he needed dolphin lights. Dwight muttered holiday spirit. Another patient burned his hand on a malfunctioning candle. Doctors shook their heads. Imagine Americans installing decorations safely. It rarely happens. Each year, the injuries return. They prove that enthusiasm sometimes outweighs caution, especially when people battle tangled cords and slippery roofs during the quest for perfect holiday displays. 75. More people die from Christmas tree fires than from shark attacks, and firefighters warn citizens every year, but few listen. A woman named Karen placed her tree near a heater. It dried faster than she expected. Sparks flew. Panic followed. Neighbors rushed with buckets. The fire department arrived quickly. Everyone survived, but the tree became ash. Imagine Americans worrying more about sharks than trees. They do. Yet holiday hazards hide indoors. Firefighters continue repeating warnings. Citizens nod, then forget. The danger remains a strange seasonal truth. Real trees may smell nice, but they can turn into surprising fiery disasters without careful attention. 76. In 1920, radium was used to make glowing Christmas ornaments, and families decorated trees with radioactive sparkle without understanding the danger. A scientist named Albert marketed the ornaments proudly. He claimed they added magical light. Children stared at the glow with amazement. Parents worried slightly but trusted the science. Imagine Americans discovering their ornaments emitted radiation. Someone would scream. The ornaments disappeared after safety concerns finally reached the public. The story became a reminder that holiday creativity sometimes goes too far. The glowing decorations faded into history, leaving behind a bright cautionary tale about mixing chemistry and cheerful traditions. 77. Those radium ornaments were genuinely radioactive, and collectors today handle them with gloves like they are ancient cursed objects. A historian named Lily opened a box of vintage ornaments. Her Geiger counter beeped immediately. She laughed nervously. Visitors stepped back. Lily carefully displayed the ornaments with warning signs. One man joked that his Christmas spirit was glowing. Nobody laughed. Imagine Americans keeping dangerous decorations in their attic. Unlikely. These relics survive because people forgot their origins. They serve as proof that holiday enthusiasm once embraced hazardous materials with confidence. The ornaments remain haunting reminders that not all sparkle is safe or friendly. 78. The first Christmas stamps in the United States contained a typo, and postal workers noticed it after thousands were printed. A clerk named Harold stared at the mistake and debated telling his supervisor. He finally did. The supervisor sighed. They discussed options. Destroying the stamps cost too much. The post office released them anyway. Collectors discovered the error years later and celebrated. Imagine Americans noticing a typo on official holiday stamps today. Someone would blame the government instantly. The stamps became rare treasures. They showed that even simple holiday designs can stumble into fame when a tiny printing error refuses correction. 79. In Finland, families visit cemeteries on Christmas Eve, and the practice surprises American visitors who expect cheerful homes instead of glowing graveyards. A woman named Lisa walked between candles placed on each headstone. Her children followed quietly. The scene felt peaceful rather than sad. Travelers asked why the tradition existed. Locals explained it, honored loved ones, and created reflective beauty. Imagine Americans adopting this custom. Some would appreciate it, others would feel scared. The Finnish tradition continues because it brings warmth to winter nights. The cemeteries become gentle landscapes of light shaped by memory love and calm, seasonal respect. 80, the heaviest Christmas turkey ever recorded, weighed 86 pounds, and the farmers who raised it treated the bird like a feathery celebrity. A farmer named Douglas posed for photos beside the giant turkey. Neighbors visited the farm just to stare. One man asked how many people it could feed. Douglas shrugged. The turkey strutted proudly. Imagine Americans preparing such a bird today. Someone would need 2 ovens. The turkey became a local legend. Its size amazed everyone. It proved holiday feasts sometimes escalate into bizarre competitions, where the goal is not flavor but sheer unbelievable poultry power during festive celebrations. 81. In 1898, people gave live eels as Christmas presents, and families reacted like someone gifted them a slippery nightmare. A man named Harold opened a wooden box expecting sweets. Instead, an eel slithered out and slapped his shoe. His wife screamed. Children ran in circles. The giver smiled proudly because he thought it was practical food. Imagine Americans today receiving live eels, someone would call animal control. Yet the tradition existed because seafood meant prosperity. People cooked the eels quickly. The unsettling gift faded over time. It survived only as one of the strangest holiday ideas humans ever attempted with genuine enthusiasm. 82. Christmas Island in the Indian Ocean was named simply because explorers discovered it on December 25th, and future visitors expected festive scenery but found none. A sailor named Robert stepped ashore hoping for decorations. He saw crabs instead. Lots of crabs. The island felt quiet and slightly judgmental. Tourists asked locals why nothing looked Christmas-themed. Locals shrugged because the name came from timing, not mood. Imagine Americans landing there with expectations of Santa statues. They would be disappointed. The island kept its name anyway. It remains a reminder that explorers sometimes choose lazy names that confuse everyone centuries later. 83. Christmas Island has nothing to do with Christmas, and tourists always leave either amused or confused. A woman named Melissa arrived expecting reindeer souvenirs. She found crustaceans crossing roads like tiny traffic jams. Guides explained the island's name came from discovery dates, not holiday spirit. Melissa laughed. She bought crab-themed souvenirs instead. Imagine Americans learning this fact before visiting. Some would still hope for Christmas magic. Others would skip the trip. The island itself remains beautiful. Its misleading name became part of its charm. It shows how geography and holiday expectations collide in ways that create accidental comedy. 84. In Japan, only 1% of people are Christian, but 90% celebrate Christmas, and the holiday evolved into a cheerful cultural mashup. A father named Kenji bought presents for his kids even though he followed different traditions. His children decorated the house with enthusiasm. Couples booked fancy dinners because Christmas became date night. Friends exchanged gifts without religious context. Imagine Americans seeing this celebration. Some would be fascinated. Others would feel confused. Japan embraced the holiday through marketing creativity and community joy. Christmas there looks different, but feels warm. It proves that celebrations can thrive simply because people enjoy togetherness. 85. The world's biggest Christmas gift was the Statue of Liberty. And Americans still joke about receiving a giant monument like it was wrapped in shiny paper. A French ambassador named Edouard announced the gift proudly. New Yorkers stared at the enormous crates arriving at the harbor. Workers assembled pieces slowly. One boy asked where the giant gift tag was. Tourists watched history unfold without realizing it. Imagine Americans receiving such a present today. Someone would complain about shipping fees. The statue became a national icon. The enormous gesture proved friendship can arrive in oversized packages that reshape skylines permanently. 86. In 1377, King Richard II hosted a Christmas feast that included 28 oxen and 300 sheep. And guests approached the table like warriors entering a battlefield of food. Servants carried trays endlessly. A nobleman named Geoffrey gasped at the mountain of meat. Musicians played loudly to match the energy. Children hid snacks in their pockets. Imagine Americans today preparing such a feast. They would need stadium seating. The royal meal became legendary. It showed that medieval celebrations focused on excess flavor and bragging rights. This banquet remains one of history's wildest examples of holiday appetite gone extreme. 87. The first Christmas in space happened during Apollo 8 in 1968, and astronauts floated inside their capsule, celebrating like calm pioneers. Frank Borman read from the Book of Genesis while Earth glowed below them. His crew members listened quietly. The message reached millions. Families on Earth watched in awe. Imagine Americans seeing this moment live today. It would break the internet. The crew improvised decorations and shared food packets. The celebration felt tiny but meaningful. Space Christmas proved humanity carries tradition everywhere, even beyond gravity. It showed that holiday spirit can reach places nobody expected, including the silent darkness above Earth. 88. The astronauts read scripture while orbiting the moon, and some viewers cried because the moment blended science, faith, and wonder. Bill Anders held the camera steady as Earth rose behind the lunar horizon. His voice shook slightly. Back home, Americans stopped chores to listen. One farmer pulled over his truck. A family turned up the volume on their old television. Imagine modern audiences hearing astronauts speak like that. The clip would trend instantly. The reading became iconic. It marked a peaceful pause during a turbulent era. Christmas in space became a symbol of unity hovering between stars and human hope. 89. In Venezuela, people roller skate to Christmas Mass, and city streets transform into lively morning parades filled with wobbling wheels and cheerful chaos. A teenager named Sophia practiced turns before sunrise. Her grandmother held onto a lamppost for balance. Friends skated together, laughing at near crashes. Police blocked roads to protect participants. Tourists recorded videos in amazement. Imagine Americans adopting this tradition. Hospitals would prepare for sprains, yet the custom continues beautifully. It brings families outdoors. It mixes exercise with faith. Roller skating mass remains one of the most joyful, unusual holiday customs in the entire world. 90. In 1918, Christmas was canceled in many places because of the flu pandemic, and families learned how quiet December felt without gatherings. A mother named Helen set a tiny table with simple food. Her children asked when relatives would visit. She shook her head sadly. Churches closed. Carolers stayed home. Imagine Americans experiencing this today. Many already know. The holiday felt lonely but resilient. People wrote letters instead of hugging. They promised to reunite when illness passed. The quiet season became a memory shared across generations. It proved that even during hardship, people hold on to hope, because holidays carry emotional strength. 91. The shortest war in history started and ended on Christmas Day, and people still shake their heads at how fast everything happened. A commander named Cecil prepared for a long battle. He lined up his troops. He gave a dramatic speech. Then the opposing side surrendered almost instantly. Soldiers blinked in confusion. One man asked if they should unpack lunch or go home. Imagine Americans watching a war end faster than a commercial break. They would celebrate the efficiency. The event became a historical oddity. It proved not every conflict requires chaos. Sometimes people choose peace because they want a holiday nap. 92. In 1926, a Canadian girl received a live reindeer as a Christmas gift, and the entire neighborhood crowded around her yard to stare. The girl named Margaret squealed with joy. The reindeer nibbled her scarf. Her parents panicked because they had no idea how to care for it. Neighbors asked for photos. One boy tried feeding it carrots. Imagine Americans receiving a reindeer today. Someone would call wildlife services. The animal survived 2 days before officials removed it. The incident became legendary. It showed how holiday generosity can wander into wild territory when people combine excitement and poor planning. 93. That reindeer died 2 days later, and the sad ending spread through the town like a cold breeze. Margaret cried. Her parents felt terrible. A veterinarian examined the animal and shook his head. Locals held a tiny ceremony even though they barely understood reindeer biology. Imagine Americans learning this story now. They would blame the gifter. The tale remained a cautionary reminder that wild animals do not make good presents. The community learned quickly. The reindeer incident survived history because it mixed joy, tragedy, and confusion into one unforgettable but gentle lesson about respecting nature during lively holiday celebrations. 94. The most expensive Christmas card ever sold for $35,000, and collectors battled fiercely to own it. An auctioneer named Victor lifted the card carefully. Bidders raised paddles with dramatic flair. One woman gasped when the price climbed. A man muttered that the card looked plain. Yet the bids kept rising. Imagine Americans paying that much for paper. Someone would demand gold edges. The card sold to a proud collector who framed it instantly. The sale proved nostalgia can inflate value beyond reason. Holiday history sometimes gains price tags that make ordinary objects feel like priceless seasonal treasures. 95. In Austria, Santa's helper is a horned demon called Krampus, and tourists step back nervously when they see him roaming the streets. A man named Lucas dressed as Krampus for the annual parade. He clanked chains and stomped loudly. Children screamed, parents laughed, visitors snapped photos but kept safe distance. Imagine Americans encountering Krampus at a mall. Panic. Yet Austrians embrace the character because tradition mixes fear and fun. Krampus reminds kids to behave. The creature's wild appearance brings energy to December. This spooky partner of Santa proves holiday myths can be both terrifying and entertaining at the same time. 96. Krampus beats bad children with sticks, according to legend, and parents retell the story with dramatic voices that make kids sit straighter, instantly. A mother named Greta warned her son about Krampus during dinner. He stopped misbehaving immediately. Neighbors used similar tactics. Tourists watching Krampus parades felt chills. Imagine Americans using this discipline method. Someone would call a meeting. Yet the tale survives because folklore often exaggerates consequences. Krampus became a symbol of strange holiday justice. The legend balances Santa's kindness with wild menace. December in Austria blends warmth and fear into a celebration that keeps everyone alert and amused. 97. In 1848, the first Christmas tree at Windsor Castle caught fire, and servants rushed to extinguish the flames before Queen Victoria noticed. A maid named Harriet screamed. Guards grabbed buckets. The royal children watched with excitement. The tree smoldered but survived. Queen Victoria entered moments later and pretended she saw nothing unusual. Imagine Americans watching a royal tree ignite. Social media would explode. The incident did not stop the trend. The British public copied the royal style enthusiastically. The fire became a funny footnote in history, showing that Even elegant palaces deal with chaotic holiday accidents, sometimes hidden behind perfect photographs. 98. Do You Hear What I Hear was written during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the song carried quiet hope when global tension frightened families. A composer named Noel scribbled lyrics late at night. His wife read them and felt moved. Radio hosts played the song carefully. Listeners clung to its calming tone. Imagine Americans hearing a holiday song born from fear. Some would feel inspired. Others would feel surprised. The tune survived decades because it blended beauty and worry. It proved music can comfort people even when the world feels unstable. The song remains a gentle reminder of resilience. 99. In 1977, a town in Indiana banned Christmas for being too commercial, and residents reacted with disbelief. A shop owner named Marty asked how he was supposed to sell ornaments. Town leaders argued about decorations. Children begged for lights. Parents complained quietly. Imagine Americans living somewhere without Christmas. They would revolt. Eventually, the town loosened the rule. People decorated secretly. The ban faded away. The story survived as an example of holiday confusion. It reminded everyone that removing Christmas only increases desire for celebration. Communities crave cheer even when officials try to simplify December with strict but misguided decisions. 100. In 2021, a man in Ohio was arrested for stealing 127 baby Jesus statues, and police entered his garage to find a bizarre plastic army. The man named Roger insisted he was collecting the set. Officers shook their heads. Neighbors stared at the pile in shock. Some nativity scenes were missing pieces. Imagine Americans hearing this on the news. They would laugh and question Roger's motives. The theft spree ended after his arrest. Towns retrieved their statues. The story became a holiday legend, proving that December sometimes attracts unusual hobbies that confuse communities and law enforcement alike. 101. The first commercial Christmas card showed people drinking alcohol and shocked Victorian families who expected innocence instead of tipsy cheer. A printer named Edward released the design proudly. Grandparents gasped. Children squinted at the wine glasses. Some critics demanded the card be destroyed. Others bought it out of curiosity. Imagine Americans today reacting to a holiday card with drinks. They would barely notice. Back then, society treated the card like a scandal, yet it became popular because controversy sells. The design marked the beginning of holiday marketing mischief, proving even gentle Christmas traditions can start with images that confuse everyone. 102. In Iceland, the Yule cat eats children who do not get new clothes, and parents use this legend like a seasonal fashion reminder. A mother named Hannah handed her son new socks. He refused. She mentioned the Yule cat. He changed instantly. Neighbors repeated the tale with serious faces. Tourists asked if the cat was real. Locals laughed softly but kept the tradition alive. Imagine Americans using this method. Someone would stage a public debate. Yet the story works. The Yule cat wanders Icelandic folklore as a furry enforcer who combines fear, humor, and fashion into one unforgettable Christmas thread. 103. Christmas pudding once contained a silver coin, and people risked choking for the chance of good luck. A man named Oliver bit into his slice and felt something hard. He shouted in triumph. His aunt panicked. Guests coughed nervously while chewing. Children poked their pudding hoping to find treasure. Imagine Americans today discovering metal inside dessert. A lawsuit would appear instantly. Yet families in the past loved the thrill. The tradition ended after too many accidents. The coin in pudding became a reminder that holiday excitement sometimes overrides common sense, especially when people chase fortune using questionable culinary surprises. 104. In Sweden, a massive straw goat built for Christmas burned down almost every year, and citizens treated its survival like a national suspense story. A guard named Eric watched the goat carefully. Someone always tried sneaking close. Flames often erupted anyway. Crowds cheered or groaned depending on the outcome. Tourists visited just to witness the chaos. Imagine Americans building a giant goat that keeps burning. People would start betting pools. The tradition continues because the mystery adds excitement. The goat symbolizes resilience and mischief. Each December, Sweden waits eagerly to see if the fiery fate repeats or finally gives the goat mercy. 105. The giant Swedish goat has been burned 37 times, and locals joke that the goat is cursed. A woman named Sophia walked past it daily and whispered, "Good luck." Volunteers installed cameras. Saboteurs still succeeded. Police patrolled the area like guards protecting a royal treasure. Children placed candles nearby and made wishes. Imagine Americans following such drama. News shows would cover it hourly. Yet the goat's fate remains unpredictable. The tradition endures because chaos keeps the story alive. Each year sparks curiosity and conversation, proving some holiday icons thrive exactly because they refuse to remain safe or stable. 106. The first Christmas celebrated by Europeans in Florida ended in cannibalism, and historians still argue how everything spiraled so badly. A sailor named Diego recorded the grim details. Supplies ran out. Tempers rose. Fear spread. People made desperate choices. Imagine Americans learning the earliest Christmas on American soil ended with horror. They would stare speechless. The event became a dark chapter in exploration history. It showed how unprepared settlers were for harsh realities. That disastrous holiday remains a reminder that not every December brings cheer. Sometimes survival overshadows celebration, leaving behind a chilling lesson buried inside forgotten winter stories. 107. Early explorers in Florida tried celebrating Christmas with hope, but starvation pushed them toward extreme decisions, and the tragedy echoed through colonies as a warning. A priest named Mateo attempted to comfort survivors. He offered prayers. The group struggled to regain stability. Ships arrived too late. Imagine Americans revisiting this memory today. They would question every step that led to disaster. Yet the story remains important because it shows how fragile early settlements were. Christmas did not protect them. Their fate revealed the harsh conditions explorers faced. This chapter stays in history as a sobering reminder of human limits. 108. Word of the Florida cannibal Christmas spread slowly across Europe, and leaders used the story to scare future expeditions. A commander named Hernando read the report with disbelief. He warned his crew repeatedly. Sailors whispered about the cursed holiday. Imagine Americans reading this report in textbooks. Teachers would hesitate, yet the account remains part of the messy past. It shaped planning for later voyages. It forced crews to prepare better. The grim tale proved that holiday dates do not shield explorers from danger. The season can carry darkness when people travel unprepared through unfamiliar land during brutal and unforgiving winters. 109. The survivors from that disastrous Florida Christmas carried the memory for life and avoided celebrating the holiday for years. A man named Raul refused festive meals. His wife decorated quietly but never mentioned the past. Neighbors whispered about the trauma. Imagine Americans skipping Christmas because of a haunting memory. Rare but understandable. The survivors rebuilt slowly. Some shared their stories cautiously, others stayed silent. The tragedy blended into local lore. It showed how holidays can transform from joy to sorrow depending on circumstance. Their silence spoke louder than any celebration and became a lingering echo within early colonial history. 110. Historians still debate the exact details of the Florida cannibal incident because records conflict and storytellers exaggerate. A researcher named Abigail compared journals for years. She marked contradictions. She sighed often. Some accounts blamed storms. Others blamed hunger. Some claimed leadership failed completely. Abigail presented her findings at conferences. Scholars argued passionately. Imagine Americans hearing experts fight over holiday history. It would become a viral debate. The truth remains tangled, but the event stands as a reminder that Christmas history is not always cheerful. Some moments are strange, tragic, and unsettling, yet they shape our understanding of the past. 111. The Florida cannibal Christmas stays in dumb history because it shows how wild, unpredictable, and bizarre real events can be. A teacher named Leonard told his students the story. Their jaws dropped. Some laughed nervously. Others felt shocked. Leonard explained that history holds both joy and chaos. He reminded them that December has seen everything from miracles to disasters. Imagine Americans realizing the strangest Christmas moment happened centuries before malls, carols, and movies. The lesson endures. It proves holiday history is not just about cheer. It is also about survival mistakes and unbelievable human reactions that become unforgettable tales through time. If you made it all the way through these 111 dumb, illegal, banned, forgotten, or straight-up disturbing Christmas facts, then you're officially part of the tiny percentage of Americans who now know more about the holiday than most history teachers. And I need you to answer one thing before you go. Which fact genuinely shocked you the most? The one that made you sit up, rewind, or question everything you thought you knew about December? Tell me the number in the comments because I want to see which moment broke the most brains today. And if even a single one of these stories made you laugh, cringe, or stare at the screen in disbelief, then hit like right now, subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the chaos of dumb history, and share this video with every friend, cousin, coworker, and group chat that thinks Christmas is a wholesome, well-behaved holiday. The more people we wake up, the faster we can expose the rest of the bizarre stories hiding in plain sight. So answer the question, drop your number, hit the buttons, spread this chaos, and tell me this. Do you want me to destroy another holiday next? Or are you still recovering from what you just learned?